Hey, everybody, it's Scott Steen with winnersandwhiners.com. It is the bonus edition of, I don't even know what we call this because it's not officially Today in Sports Betting. It's Today in UFC Betting is what we're going to do. And as always, joining me to take a look at the UFC fights on Saturday night is the one and only Scott Reichel. Scott, what's up, bud?
Looking forward to going through UFC. You know, it's one of my favorite shows of the week because I just love betting UFC. Last week, unfortunately, was not a great week. I lost by 2 units, but I know you cleaned up. As you reminded me constantly last week, so congratulations to you.
Hit another one.
But overall, yeah, you know me. I don't get discouraged by 1 week. I still like the way that I capped the card. You know that last week I went with an abnormally large amount of long shots for outcomes, and none of them panned out. But if one of them did, I would have been up. So, you know, you got to take your shots so you can get them. And unfortunately,
absolutely,
my shots just didn't
yeah. And you know, it was a weird card when I made money, so it was fine. I did well. Normally I have Winning Willie with us. He's not joining us today. Willie is he's a youngster, and I believe he sometimes stays out late and then sleeps through his alarm. So we're giving him the benefit of the doubt. But you and I are going to plunge forward with this fight card. And Scott, we've got early prelims. We're gonna skip right to the meat here. We're gonna just pretty much get rid of the salad course and go right for the meat. There's just too many first-time fighters, too much uncertainty going on in a lot of the undercard. The first one that you have a play on, I know, is the women's strawweight fight between Felice Herrig and Verna Jandiroba, and I know you've got a little bit of a parlay there. So tell us. Let's kick it off with that, Scott.
So my first play is going to be on a 2-pick parlay between Jandiroba money line and Burton's money line. Burton's going to be in the main card. Now, there's a couple of reasons why I like this matchup. First of all, I think it's worth telling that when you have a fighter who is 15-1 and is a pretty big favorite despite significantly less experience in the UFC, I think it's pretty telling. Herrig's been around the block a couple of times. She's fought a decent amount. Is she any good? No. But I think that the fact that Jandiroba has been pretty lethal in terms of submission offense, if you're able to have 15 wins with 12 by submission, I think you should be able to take care of business against an aging UFC veteran in Herrig. Herrig's been around the block. She's okay. I know that she's 14-8. But if you look at her recent results, she struggled lately. She is 0-2 in her last 2, both by decision. And she hasn't won a fight since 2017. Her last fight was in October 2018. So there's a long layoff here, and she's against a 15-1 fighter. So for that reason, I just think Jandiroba is going to walk through her.
Well, and Jandiroba is a prohibitive favorite at minus 290. Herrig is plus 250 on her side. You know, Scott, I like the. I'll tell you what I like here. I don't mind playing the under 2.5, and I know you're just setting yourself up for heartbreak.
The only issue I had was that I know where you're going with that. The only issue I had with that is that Herrig has actually never been stopped. All of her losses have come by decision, so she does tend to go the distance in these fights, which kind of scared me off because I feel like if Jandiroba was going to win, obviously it will have to be by submission. So I feel like if you want to take that the distance, you should just take her by submission. But she's never been stopped.
I don't hate that. What's Jandiroba by submission?
I'm going to pull that up. Give me a second. But
the under 2.5 is plus 185.
I got to assume that the submission's probably in the plus 2 something range, but I'll pull it up in a second. But if you want to, you can just continue.
All right, I would take whichever one has the most value there. If you wanted to take a spin on that, it is somewhat troubling that Herrig's never been stopped. But I don't know that she's ever faced off as somebody with as good a submission specialist as Jandiroba. So
and she has significantly more experience, and she hasn't fought in the span of over a year, around 2 years. So that's just not ideal. I see Jandiroba by submission is let me see this. It's plus 275.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go with that then. Because obviously she's not. If it's going to be a stoppage, it's not going to be a knockout. It's going to be a submission. So, and again, it gives you an extra 2 minutes and 30 seconds to get it done there.
Do you think Herrig's going to struggle with the ring rust? Do you think Herrig's going to struggle with the ring rust?
I don't see any way she doesn't. I don't know how you can sit out that long and and not and um you but you're gonna play her. You're gonna lay that minus 290, or you got a better price than that?
Well, I had it at Bet Online, and it turned out to be a 2-pick with her and Burns, and I just know that the 2-pick ended up paying out minus 119.
Okay. All right. Very good. All right. So
I'll
let's
get
go with
into
that
I'll
one.
get into the Burns description in a little bit when we actually get up to that fight, but that's the second pick of that.
Right. I got you. You got anything else on this undercard?
No. I know that I also wrote an article for WindorsandWires.com on the Jim Miller fight that he's going to be having. And even though I wrote an article about it and I would lean to Miller, I really am not interested in actually playing that fight. I think Miller has some value, but Pitchell is pretty solid overall, but he's only been in 14 career fights. And they're two kind of aging guys. So I'm going to lean to Miller for the experience, but in reality, I didn't see enough value to pull the trigger on it.
I would lean Miller by sub if I was gonna play anything there, and I maybe take a double. I maybe take a double outcome. Yep. I might consider taking Pichel by knockout and Miller by sub.
Okay.
And seeing if I can make a little money on that. So.
Okay.
All right. So that pretty much concludes our undercard, Scott. And
not a bad thing though, because this main card is it's looking pretty good.
It is a main card. I know you got one of your favorites. That's going to fight, and one of my favorites is going to be in the penultimate bout there in Sean O'Malley. So we'll talk about that here in a second. Let's start with this first bout of the main card. That is Herbert the Blaze Burns against Daniel the Pit Pineda. Pull up the odds there on them.
Well, Burns is roughly like minus 290. It's very similar odds to the Jandarobe odds.
Yeah, I've got Burns at minus 270 plus 230 on Pineda. Yeah. 1.5 there is the total is the over under, and it is juiced to the under. They think this one's going to be a
quick one.
They think this one's going to be a quick one, Scott, and that is you've got two submission specialists here. Do you see it? You see it going over 1.5?
It's really tricky for me because Pineda. Actually, fun fact: Pineda used to be in the UFC. He hasn't been in the UFC since 2014. So he's making a return after 6 years, which I find pretty fascinating in the circumstance. Burns is an up and comer. If you paid attention to him, he has destroyed a lot of people on his path so far in his very brief UFC career. And I simply just think that they're basically feeding this opponent to get destroyed by Burns. I know that Pineda has a lot of submission wins, but in reality, he has 6 submission losses as well.
Right.
And Burns is just he's a dude. That's all I'm going to say. He's the better fighter.
I'll take Burns by sub there.
Yeah, that's where I would lean as well. But for the sake of I'd say safety and a bit of convenience, I got him in the money line parlay with Jandarobe.
Okay, so that's you never want to say a sure thing, but that's two really, really solid plays.
Yeah, Burns by sub is roughly like minus 130, which is not ideal. I'm gonna check FanDuel to cross-reference the prices, but
it's not going to
give me around best case scenario even money.
I'm not getting plus money on it, and
that's why I chose the money line because I figured I just didn't think it was worth it at that point.
That's really where I want to get involved. All right, let's take a look at the next one here. John the Magician Dodson against Merab the Machine. Say it, Scott. Valishvili, yeah.
I found Burns by sub at minus 125 on FanDuel. I don't know if you want it, but that's what it's at.
I'll probably end up playing it, but that's not much value there.
I just went with the money line. Burns is going to win.
Okay. All right, so let me go. Dodson is going to be the massive underdog here. Valishvili is minus 237 plus 202 on Dodson. 2.5 juice to the over. Seriously juiced to the over here at minus 300. Scott, tell me about this one. First of all, tell me if there's any value on taking under 2.5.
No. My play on this is one of my favorite plays in the entire card. I got Valishvili by decision at minus 125 on FanDuel. I'm gonna lay the juice all day, every day. with Dvalishvili in this matchup. Couple reasons why. First of all, Dodson, very similar to what I just said about Hercog, never lost by anything besides a decision. All 11 of his losses have come by decision. 20 of his 32 career fights have gone to decision. So he tends to go the distance. He's a tough dude. And Dvalishvili is a takedown machine. In his last 2 fights, he set the all-time bantamweight record for most takedowns in a single fight. Back-to-back fights. He had 12 in one fight, 13 in the other. And the issue that Dvalishvili has, that even though he ragdolls opponents for 3 rounds, he never finishes anybody. He just gets a bunch of takedowns and doesn't do anything with them. Yeah, and Dodson – I'm sorry, what were you going to say?
I was going to say not only 9% of his wins have come by way of submission.
No, correct. He just doesn't submit anybody, but he just ragdolls people. And Dodson, despite fighting for the championship twice and losing to Mighty Mouse Johnson a couple of years ago in both fights, he's a great veteran. He's got a lot of power in his punches. Always struggled with wrestling. And Dvalishvili is the bigger dude. He's the stronger dude. He's the better wrestler. Dvalishvili is going to ragdoll him again for another 3 rounds, and I think he's going to win pretty easily, probably 30-27 on every scorecard. So
you think there's no shot that Dodson could stay on his feet and get a knockout there?
I think that if you're going to take Dodson to win, you better take the knockout because he's not winning in a decision. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, if you want to take a spin, I guarantee you're going to get a nice price. What are you plus 450 there, Scott?
Ballpark. I know that if you're looking at Dodson to win on the money line, he should be somewhere in the realm of the, I'd say, high plus 100s, low plus 200s.
He's plus 202 on the money line. So
yeah, that's what I was saying. He's high plus 100s, low 200s, depending on where you shop around. Dodson's always been a knockout guy. He's always been the guy who has a lot of power to his punches, especially in the bantamweight division. But if you wanted method of victory for Dodson by knockout, it's actually kind of weird because FoxBet has some limits, of course, which aren't that great. But they have Dodson by knockout at plus 400, but Dodson inside the distance at plus 500. I'm assuming the limits are terrible on that plus 500 deal, but either or, you're getting an extra dollar of value there. If you're going to throw a sprinkle on it anyway, you might as well do it on the damn low limit bet, right?
Oh, that makes absolutely no sense at all. Yeah.
FoxBet has a lot of questionable lines at times, so that's why I enjoy using it as my primary book.
Excellent. Thanks for the free plug there for FoxBet too.
It's the book I would use. I'll tell you that much.
There you go. All right, and now we get into the big boys here. Pretty good fight there between Junior Sagano dos Santos against Jairzinho Biggie Boy Rosenstruck.
Fun fight. That's all I'm going to say. Good
should
stuff.
Be a fun fight as Brazil squares off against Suriname. And the odds for this one.
Rosenstruck's a favorite, roughly around minus 140.
Yeah, I got him at minus 126, plus 106 if you wanted to play Dos Santos. As many times with the heavyweights, 1.5 is your total here.
Well,
no juice on either side.
That is worth mentioning because Rosenstruck did open as roughly a minus 140 favorite at every book. So there has been money coming in on Junior Dos Santos.
Okay. And like you said, Scott, both of these guys are knockout specialists. Rosenstruck, 90% of his wins have come by way of knockout. 71% of Dos Santos' victories have come by the big sleep, by the big punch. So neither one of these guys submit anybody. It rarely goes to decision. What's your angle here, bud?
My play on this fight's the under 1.5 rounds, which is available at minus 115 on Bet Online. If you want to get greedy with it, you could potentially take fight to end in the first round, which you could get at a plus price. I want those extra 2.5. Dos Santos is a little bit older, and even though he does have the knockout power, he sometimes likes to feel at his opponent for the first round before opening it up a little bit in the second round. But really all you need to know is that Dos Santos has the knockout power still at 36, and he's still a phenomenal boxer in MMA. So he still has the ability to potentially pick Rosenstruck apart from the stand-up. At the same point, Dos Santos has lost each of his last 2 fights by knockout to Ngannou and to Blades. Now, Ngannou is a separate animal, so I'm not even going to mention Ngannou because that's just – Ngannou would knock out a horse. That just doesn't even count.
Like Alex Karras in Blazing Saddles.
Yes, like he would actually just punch the horse and the horse would just collapse. That's what Ngannou is. Blades is a little bit of I'd say he lost in the second round roughly a minute. Rosenstruck's gone through a bunch of people in the first round as well. I think they're both going to stand up. I don't see wrestling play much of a factor, as you said before. And I think somebody's going to connect. I think somebody's going to drop. So realistically, if you think this fight's going to end early, which I do, you're giving me under 1.5 rounds at roughly pick them for the most part at minus 115. I'm going to take it.
I'm assuming there's not enough value there to play at both sides on the knockouts.
You could, but
you're getting.
It's only 3 rounds.
I guarantee you're getting. Yeah, I guarantee you're getting less than plus 200 both sides for knockout.
Yeah, correct. Right? I wouldn't do that personally because it is 3 rounds. There is a chance that Dos Santos plays pretty cautiously or fights pretty cautiously because Rosenstruck has so much power and he's such a phenomenal kickboxer based on his amateur kickboxing record. So there is a chance that Santos plays it safe. He could wrestle a little bit, but I doubt it. I think somebody's going to get dropped pretty quickly. So for that reason, I'll take the under 1.5.
All right.
You have any thoughts on that?
I would ride with you there. I think it's. I do worry about Dos Santos playing a little bit of defense, just like you said. That's my only worry with the under. But I don't think there's any, unless you wanted to pick a side with a knockout, then I don't think there's any.
That's really tricky though. I really don't know who wins this fight.
Right.
It was one of those fights where I was actually looking at because, as you know, I follow a lot of UFC. I follow a ton of MMA. And Dos Santos used to be champion, all-time great fighter. He's also 36, and he's lost his last 2 fights by knockout. Now, he's gone up against some good competition, and Rosenstruck got killed by Ngannou in his last fight as well. I'm not going to blame him for losing to Ngannou in 16 seconds because Ngannou kills everybody in roughly less than a minute. So that happens. But Rosenstruck also went 5 rounds with Overeem and then knocked him out with 5 seconds left in the fight. So he has gone to long fights when he's needed to. But Overeem's relied on wrestling, and Dos Santos doesn't really have that in his arsenal. But I think you'll agree with me. Dos Santos definitely, as a veteran, should know that he's going to need to at least be creative with his strikes because Rosenstruck might take his head off.
Yeah, I agree. I've got odds on I've got Dos Santos by knockout at plus 350.
That's not bad.
And I'm trying to find. I can't find
Rosenstruck. I can find that. Give me a second.
I got Rosenstruck. No, I don't have.
I see Rosenstruck by knockout at roughly minus 120. I see Dos Santos by knockout at roughly plus 275.
Okay. Well, I would be. You know what? I might be a player there. Just take the long shot and take Dos Santos on the.
I'll tell you what, though, money coming in on Dos Santos definitely seems like that would bode well for the veteran in the spot.
Yeah, I think that's going to be my play. Is try to catch the big ticket there, or the relatively big ticket at plus 350.
That was one thing that I was actually looking for. As you know, I always love to play one fight for the as the long shot to kind of try to get some extra value on a card that could potentially blow up into a massive profit.
Right.
I think if I was going to do that, it probably would have been Miller by submission if I really had to lean in one direction.
Right, which is the way that I was leaning on that.
I personally skipped that fight, though, because I think that fight could go either way. But Dos Santos by knockout, roughly plus 360 on FanDuel is also a pretty good look.
All right, fair enough. And now the second to the last bout, the penultimate fight, if you will, on the main card is Sugar Sean O'Malley against Marlon Chito Vera. O'Malley looked very good his last time out, and he is the massive favorite here. Scott O'Malley is minus 265. Vera is plus 225. 2.5 is the number there, juiced to the over. So tell me about this one.
So this is a fight between two conflicting, styles. O'Malley, as everyone knows, is the massive knockout specialist who does spinning kicks with rainbow-colored hair, and he knocks people out. And then you have Vera, who is more of a wrestler, bit of a submission guy. He did a decent amount of stand-up against Yadong Song before losing a controversial decision in his last fight. But for the most part, he's a ground guy, and O'Malley is yet to really be tested on the mat. So people are kind of thinking that this fight could go either way because whichever fighter gets their preferred style in the fight, showcasing their specific skills, should have a good chance to win. Now, O'Malley's a huge favorite. Makes perfect sense.
Undefeated as a pro.
Guys potentially going to be fighting for a title in about a year, and all the fans will love him because he kills people. So he's a highlight reel specialist, and I'm sure all of the public, despite the fact that he's a huge favorite, still love him, and they're probably going to bet him anyway. So my prediction for this fight is the under. And the under usually was around minus, I'd say 120, give or take. However, DraftKings had plus 110 on the under 2.5. I like the value there. O'Malley said publicly he's predicting a first-round knockout against Vera in the fight. Do I think he's going to get the first-round knockout? No. But anytime the fighter basically says, I'm going to try to kill this guy, that definitely is a good sign for the under. And plus, I've never seen O'Malley on the ground, really, and Vera has good submission games. I think if it stays in the stand-up, Vera has never been knocked out, but Eddie Wineland barely got knocked out in his career also, and O'Malley took his head off in the first round. I think O'Malley's the most elite striker in the division, and I think that if you're going to break it down, I think O'Malley can win by knockout, and I think if it goes to the ground, I think Vera can win by submission. So for me, I think the value's on the under 2.5.
Yeah, I agree. And, a lot of interesting things happen when somebody says they're going to go for a first-round knockout. If they actually follow through with that plan, if they don't get the first-round knockout, oftentimes they expend a lot of energy
trying to get it.
And it certainly leaves them a little weaker on their defense, and especially in an area where O'Malley is yet to be tested as far as his takedown and his wrestling. It's a good chance if he doesn't get that knockout in the first round, you're going to get your submission sometime in the next round and a half.
Yeah. At first glance, I don't think O'Malley should be minus 300. I understand that O'Malley's the rising star. I know that the UFC wants to breed him to potentially be the next champion because he's a massive character. I get it. But in reality, you can't have a stand-up guy fighting a wrestling guy and expect him to be minus 300. When Vera's held his own in the division, I thought he got hosed in his last fight. I had money on Song in his last fight, and I thought that Vera got robbed. So I think that Vera is a potential live dog. But for safety purposes and the fact that I would never want to go against O'Malley because he kills people in this division, I'll take the under. Because I think that I think a decision is possible, but O'Malley hasn't really gone to many decisions in his career. Let's put it that way.
No, he hasn't. Just a quarter of his fights have gone the distance.
Mm-hmm.
And 2/3 of his fights have ended by him knocking them out as far as his wins go. Of course,
if I really had to lean to an outcome, I'd probably lean to O'Malley by knockout. But I think under 2.5 is such a safe play, especially at plus money on DraftKings.
Yeah, I got it at plus 105. You got it at plus 110. That's fair play. All right, and here is your main event.
My boy.
What's that?
My boy Daniel Cormier. My boy.
The Cormier, the number one contender going against your current champion. Is it going to be Stipe Miocic?
Miocic.
Yeah, Miocic. I think it's so close.
Arguably the greatest heavyweight fighter of all time.
Do you believe that?
I think whoever wins this fight's the greatest heavyweight fighter of all time.
Okay, good enough. Not like there's anything on the line. This is
well, Cormier is potentially going for the greatest fighter of all time, so there is a lot on the line.
This is the most competitive fight as far as the odds go of the evening. Cormier,
well, it's even.
Even though he is the challenger, is a small favorite here, minus 116.
It's even at some books. It's minus 110 on both sides on FanDuel.
I don't doubt that. Miocic is
not FanDuel. Fox Bet is minus 110 on both sides.
Wow, there you go. A little bit of value there. Minus 104 on the other side is what I have. The over/under is 2.5 on this one, heavily juiced to the over. Nobody sees a quick outcome to this heavyweight bout. Scott, are you in agreement with that?
So this fight, I wrote an article. I wrote an article with my predictions to the main card, and I'm kind of repeating some of them for this one. But I sat before I finished my breakdown in this article. I sat for a while. And I really had to think about this fight for a long period of time, because this fight it's really a phenomenal main event. There's really no other way to put it. Based on the pedigree of both fighters.
Can I say it's about time
for the third fight?
For a phenomenal main event.
Yeah, that's fair.
Although the main event last week was pretty good.
It could be bad. I mean, one of these fighters could potentially win early, and this fight could end quickly, but This third fight got delayed a long period of time. Stipe had issue finding training in Ohio. He had issues with his eye. He needed surgery on. There's a lot of stuff going on that delayed the fight. I'm happy it's finally happening. Now, my thoughts on this actual fight, if you wanted my long shot, I would take Cormier by decision. That would be my long shot for the fight. I think that Cormier, especially after dominating the first 3 rounds of the second fight before getting destroyed by body punches in the fourth, which led to a knockout loss, I think Cormier is going to play it safe. Cormier is arguably the greatest wrestler of all time. He's the greatest wrestling heavyweight, in my opinion, of all time. You could argue Brock Lesnar, but he was on steroids for about 90% of his career. So I think Cormier is just a.
Although Brock Lesnar Brock Lesnar was a national champion at the heavyweight division in the NCAA. So
correct, and it's worth mentioning that Cormier came in 4th in the Olympics in heavyweight wrestling. So he's a well-regarded heavyweight wrestler. But the issue that I have with this fight, first of all, my play is Cormier money line.
Okay,
that's my play. For the safety of it, I'll take Cormier money line at -110 on Fox Bet. There's a couple reasons why I like Cormier. The question you have to ask yourself is he's 41. He announced officially that he's retiring no matter what. This is his last fight, win or lose. So the question is, do you think he's going to ride off into the sunset, or do you think he's going to lose again to Miocic? And the issue I have with Miocic is that he's been in the ring with Cormier for 5 rounds, and Cormier has dominated 4 of the 5 rounds. The one round that Stipe won, he knocked Cormier out. So based on what I've seen from these 2 fighters, Cormier has dominated about 80% of the time that they've spent together in the octagon. And for that reason, I do not think they should be -110. I think Cormier should be closer to -120, -125. I think Cormier is going to wrestle. I think he's going to play it safe. Cormier has been known to be a relatively boring fighter for casual fans because he's gone against some knockout power guys in the past, Anthony Rumble Johnson, for example, Alexander Gustafsson, for example, and he would just take him down and wrestle him and win. And he would just be willing to eat up minutes on the ground and win rounds. And I think he's going to do that.
Winning ugly, they would call that in other sports.
Correct. And since Cormier is going out on top and he doesn't need to worry about defending his title and doing whatever, I don't think he cares how he's going to win. I think Cormier knows all he has to do is avoid body shots from Miocic and keep the fight relatively, safe on the ground, and he's going to stack up points on the scorecards. So for me, I think the over 2.5 is a fair play, but I'm not a big fan of the juice there, like -135. I think it's okay. I think decision for Cormier at +400 makes a lot of sense. I think he could win by knockout. He could win by submission, though. I think there's a lot more ways that Cormier can win this fight than Miocic. I think Miocic doesn't have much of a shot to win by decision. I think Miocic has a decent shot to win by knockout. He's got no shot to win by sub. I think Cormier could win by decision, knockout, or sub. So for that reason, my play would be Cormier money line at -110.
Fair enough. Does the vast difference in size bother you at all?
I don't think it can, because Cormier's already won 4 of the 5 rounds they've been there together. It would bother me if this was the first fight they had together.
Right. I mean,
but Cormier is dominated.
Miocic literally has a 7.5-inch reach advantage on him, and he outweighs him by 35 pounds. He's 6 inches taller.
Well, the outweighing on him matters. You should wait for the weigh-in, which is today, because some of those weigh-ins, Cormier spent most of his career fighting at light heavyweight. He said he wants to come in at roughly 240. That's his goal weight. He wants to be around 240. Okay. I don't know what Miocic wants to come in at. So they're both going to make heavyweight because you have about a 60-pound area that you have to come in between for heavyweight to make weight. Pay attention to weights. If you really want to weigh it out, I'd wait for the weigh-in. If Cormier is anywhere near 240, which is where he wants to be, I like Cormier even more. And I expect people to come in on Cormier. But for the reach advantage, I think it would matter if they hadn't fought twice already and I hadn't already seen Cormier destroy him for about 20 minutes before losing by body shots in the 4th round.
But ultimately, the reach advantage mattered.
I don't really know if it did, because Cormier killed him for the first 3 rounds.
Right.
And then Miocic changed up the strategy and punched him to the body a bunch of times, and he won.
Okay, well.
It wasn't like straights to the body, though. It was like weird uppercuts. So I don't really think the reach played much of a factor. It was really weird.
Okay.
But it was a great move by Miocic. But in reality, I got to go with Cormier. At -110, I think he's going to ride off into the sunset.
You know what? Just for grins off age, I'll take Miocic by knockout.
You can argue either way, but I think Miocic's only hope of winning will be by knockout. I think Cormier can win in a variety of ways. But if you want my long shots, screw it, here's the main event play, I'll go with Cormier by decision at roughly +400. But that's my thoughts on the main event.
And I've got Miocic to win by knockout is only +180.
I think that's his only hope of victory.
So I don't love that. So, all right, very good.
I hope it turns into a great fight. Don't get me wrong. If Cormier wins by first round knockout like he did in the first one, I'll be happy because A, I'll have money on Cormier, and B, Cormier is one of my favorite fighters of all time. So I'll be happy about it. If Miocic wins, I won't be that upset because I do respect Miocic, especially the fact that he's a volunteer firefighter in his free time, and he still does it despite being a world champion. I think what he's done for the community in Ohio is fantastic. So I like him as well. But Cormier has been one of my all-time favorite fighters, and I want to see him win. But I want it to be a very competitive fight, of course, as a main event. If it ends in the first round, I'm not going to, riot or anything. It is what it is.
Well, at least you're going to back one of your favorite fighters this week, unlike last week.
Well, that's the problem with that. Last week, two of my favorite fighters were against each other. So I was stuck between a rock and a hard place, and I went with value, and it kicked my ass.
Yeah, it did.
But it looked pretty good. I'll tell you what, though. He was a couple seconds away from getting that in the first round.
That arm was so close.
It was so close. At +260, I think that was such a good deal.
Yeah, and then of course, and then it ended.
All you have to do is not die to start the second round. All right, immediate flying knee. I'm like, all right, cool. See you later. I'm gonna.
And I cashed my +450 second round knockout.
Yeah, but yeah, for that fight, I'm gonna go with Cormier.
Okay, good enough. All right, there you go. There's a show right there. That's our that is our UFC show today in sports betting.
We made up a title for this. Did we come up with like Puncher's Picks or something?
Puncher's Picks. I don't hate that.
Either I made that up now or I told you about that like a week and a half ago. But that sounded pretty good.
Either way, I don't remember you telling me, but I'm old. I forget things.
Cool. We'll go with Puncher's Picks.
All right.
Either that or submission selections. One of the two.
Well, that's much better than my idea, which is we're punch drunk again. So
that's not a bad one either.
All right, buddy. It'll be fun. I know. I enjoyed watching that card last Saturday night, and should be another fun night. A lot of things going on to bet on. You got the basketball game. You got, of course, the hockey playoffs. You got the play-in game on the NBA side. You got You got the full MLB card, and you got UFC. If you can't find something to bet on, what's wrong with you? I don't know.
I agree.
Okay. All right. Good enough. Thanks for joining us today, Scott.
I've joined you for the third time today, and,
I know, right?
It's been nice every time.
I've talked to you way more today than I have my wife, so.
You're welcome.
All right, for myself, for Scott Reichel, for all of us over here at Winners and Winers, don't forget to check out Scott's stuff over there at Winners and Winers. He's the new UFC sniper over there, so check out his article.
I did a lot more deep recaps on the UFC cards on the website. I wrote a bunch of articles for it, so if you want to look at any of those, I even broke down a couple of prelim fights. If you want to go through those as well. I was a little bit tentative on actually making selections on those, but I broke it down the best way that I could. And, I broke down some main events also where I took pretty much the same picks I had here, but I went more in depth on the writing. So keep that in mind, and you can check those out if you want to actually see it. So there you go.
Excellent. All right. Good luck to you, Scott. Good luck to me. Good luck to all of you that are listening. Appreciate it. As always, if you have any questions or comments or ideas, drop them in the comment section. Let us know who you're on, what your favorite play of the night is. And, we'll do it again. We'll fire it up again when? Next week, I'm guessing we will. I love the UFC every week, and we'll be back to do it next Friday as well. So until then, you guys take care. Be safe. Good luck. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.